Hello, George, and let me officially welcome you to the Maintenance Analytics Summit here in Stockholm. It's really a pleasure having you and having Metso with us joining. Thank you.
Thank you, Sven. It's great to be here.
Okay, so before we go on with further questions, can you please tell us more about yourself, your background, and your area of expertise?
Sure. I'm a chemical engineer by background and training, and I spent most of my career in process automation and process controls. And what's interesting about that is it's always a mix about understanding the process and understanding the data and the information that comes from that process and what it's telling you about what's going on.
Okay, so predictive maintenance is lately surely one of the most talked about topics when it comes to asset management, when it comes to maintenance. So where do you see the biggest challenges when companies try to deploy data into bringing actually to adding value to maintenance? So in order to make it data driven, what is stopping them?
Right. There are a couple of things stopping them. One is getting the right analytics that are accurate, that tell you exactly what does need to be resolved, making sure your predictions are correct. But the second thing that's really important is making sure that you have a follow-through. Because in the end, you're only going to fix problems if somebody actually goes and turns the wrench. And oftentimes you find that we can predict and analyze and diagnose many different types of things, but then getting them fixed or resolved is the part where we fall down. You know, we need to follow through, make sure that somebody's taking the corrective actions.
So according to you, because you presented on IIoT, what is the most interesting use of the industrial IoT, and what are the factors that can accelerate or risky its successful implementation?
Sure. There are a lot of things that are interesting about IoT, right? First of all is understanding your process better, understanding your equipment better, getting better knowledge about what's going on in the world. But also, I'm always very interested in making sure that that information, that knowledge is turned into action. And I think one of the most interesting parts about IoT is to be able to combine not only the technical, analytical, and diagnostic information, but also the economic information and the value side of the equation to make sure that we're prioritizing and working on the right things, not just getting information about everything that can be put on the Internet of Things, but choosing to get the right things and to choose the right actions.
So not just gathering and yeah. So you gave a presentation on IIoT for process control. So what are the benefits of it for process control when it comes to it?
Yeah, this is a really interesting question because the benefits come depending on how users choose to use the information. So for example, if you're really interested in increasing the production rate at your facility, you may choose to use the information in one way, finding the constraints, the bottlenecks, and so on, and applying your actions in that direction. If, on the other hand, you're not interested in increasing production rate, but you'd rather focus on energy efficiency, well, then you look at different types of information using the same IoT kind of framework. So you would look at oscillating temperature controls, and you would look at poor fuel efficiency and those kind of things that come from the same data, but just used in different ways, analyzed in different contexts.
So what would you advise the business leaders when it comes to the Internet of Things?
Yeah, I would say
From a strategic perspective.
Yeah, first of all, it's important to begin with the end in mind. That is, know what it is you're trying to accomplish. Are you trying to accomplish energy efficiency, or are you trying to accomplish improved reliability? What do you really want to do first? That's really critically important. And the second thing is, I would advise business leaders to realize that you already have a lot of the data. You don't need to go buy a lot of sensors and instrument the process. You already have a huge amount of data. In fact, the manufacturing sector has more data available to it than any other industry. So the data's there. Focus on the analytics and focus on the problem that you want to solve, be it energy efficiency, reliability, production increase, quality.
Exactly. So, and that's what all the summit is all about, to be honest. Like we've bravely titled it Maintenance Analytics. Okay, so George, from your perspective, from your experience, knowledge, there are still many organizations who are juniors in the field, and considering applying all of this data-driven approach to maintenance. So what would your first suggestion be to them? Where should they start and what should they prioritize?
You should start by partnering. Partner with somebody who has the information, the knowledge about the area that you want to work in. For example, if you're really concerned about reliability of rotating equipment, you should partner with one of your vendors that supplies rotating equipment, get their insight and perspective on best practices and what's out there. That's a really good place to start, because a lot of, I think, partnerships between vendors and end user customers are going to get stronger and stronger through this process, through the application of IoT.
Okay, so now I think you mentioned this in your second answer, but according to McKinsey reports, most of the data is used only to detect and control anomalies, rather than to optimize and predict on them, which is actually the true value of it. What is your comment on this?
I would challenge that a little bit. I would say that it's easier to measure the benefits of optimization, but that doesn't mean necessarily that's where the benefits are coming from. For example, what I mean is, if the fundamental equipment is not performing properly, if the sensor's not measuring properly, if the valve's not opening properly, if the motor's not turning properly, there is a loss of efficiency. Fixing those anomalies, fixing those performance problems, does in fact help the performance of the whole plant. But it's a lot harder to detect the impact that each of those individual little fixes has to the optimization of the whole plant.
Interesting, honestly. So you mentioned some examples of how the resulting reports and analytics can be used to drive business results during your presentation. Can you reveal a bit more?
Sure. So for example, if you think about instrumentation failures and how that can help to drive the overall business. If you're not properly measuring temperatures, pressures, and flows, how can you know for sure that your process is really working, right? How can you really know where that's going? Those fundamental regulatory measurements are absolutely required to help drive the process forward. But it's necessary, but maybe not sufficient to the full optimization. So what I would say is companies need to think about first getting that regulatory layer working, then applying advanced controls. A lot of times what you see is companies will try to take an advanced analytics and optimization approach first without making sure that the fundamentals are working properly. It's kind of like putting a race car driver in your car, but you forgot to inflate the tires. You have to fix the regulatory layer first.
So one last question, what we always address to the speakers, and what is a prediction about this topic in the near future?
Right. I already alluded to it a little bit. I think the near future, my best prediction is stronger relationships between equipment vendors and manufacturing facilities. And why do I say that? We already have a lot of data, we already have a lot of analytics, but what we have is a compartmentalization of the knowledge. So for example, an equipment vendor producing some type of device has a lot of knowledge about that device, its uses, its failure modes, what can happen. The manufacturer or the end user using that device in their factory has a lot of information about the application of that device into their plant. But the information doesn't always cross between the vendor and the end user company. You have sometimes distributors in between and so on. I think what we're going to see with IoT is a lot more merging of that information, that knowledge base between vendors and end user customers, and stronger relationships, stronger trust, stronger sharing of knowledge to optimize the business overall for these two partners.
Right. George, it was really a pleasure. I want to thank you once again for joining the Maintenance Analytics Summit and for conducting this interview with me.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. It was great to be here, and I really enjoyed it.
Hope you like Stockholm.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.